that?
Nothing like some crazy technical difficulties at the 11th hour. Are you in the actual Capitol building?
Not the Capitol, but the Rayburn building, which is an adjoining building. Basically, I'm
So
right across the street, if that makes
we'll
any
just,
sense. So I'm
we'll just
basically at the Capitol.
yeah, we'll just chalk up that nonsense up to the drama. But we're here now. So thanks everyone. We're a little bit late for this Wednesday, Live Well Wednesday version. Thank you for joining. We have Samantha Parker with us, who, if you guys have been following, it's been a labor of love to get her on here. So I'm so happy and so excited that this is finally working. Thank you, Sam, so much for being flexible. And I know I was flexible one time and everything. So, I just really appreciate it. Before we jump into it, Live Well Wednesday is my birth child, where we talk real, raw, and just have a good conversation. And this is, I think, the 7th or 8th one so far. So things are going awesome. Every Wednesday, somewhere between 7 and 9 o'clock, I have someone on to talk about wellness. So please join us. This Wednesday with Sam here, we're going to talk about yoga, chronic pain, all the cool things she does. And one thing I wanted to start off right off the top is she's an author. She wrote a book. Yay. Love this book. Read it about, maybe 2 years ago, I think, or maybe even a year ago I got it and read it. So all the listeners, if you like, comment, share on this Live Well Wednesday Facebook Live, you will be entered in to win your very own. I'm not giving you mine because I love it. But when I see Sam, I'm going to have her sign it too. But you will be entered to win one of these books. So I see a like coming through already. Good job. Like, comment, and share this with your group. And next week we will pick a winner. So I'm going to do that for everyone. So let's just jump right into it. Sam and I, just kind of how we know each other. We were stationed in Aviano together, gosh, too long.
Long time. I think it's like 18 years now.
Yeah, with little kids and no idea what we were doing. And Sam did my nails.
Another lifetime ago.
I know, right? And so much has changed from that. But we've known each other for a very long time, and because of Facebook land and just everything, we were able to reconnect, and she's doing awesome things. So Sam, just to kind of start us off, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about you and how you started this journey into, I know you have a whole bunch of really cool names that fall behind or in front of your actual name that I can't even pronounce. So please tell our listeners, how you got to that and, what your journey was.
Okay. So ex-military spouse, 17 years, lots of traveling, obviously. So so let me start up. So I have a master's degree in kinesiology, an undergrad in exercise physiology. I am a certified yoga therapist, which is basically like a PhD in yoga. It's like 1,000+ hours of yoga teacher training. And once you start to get behind or above, and I'm also a 500R or E experienced yoga instructor. I mean, it's just, and then I'm also a personal trainer, have been for a long, long time. I'm a group instructor. I'm like Pilates and mat reformer certified, you name it. I probably taught it. Like I was teaching body pump before body pump was a thing, so I'm just old school. I've been at it for a while, but, so just really quick, and I guess maybe I'll start off with my journey was actually in Aviano. So I was always really, really physically active, like in high school. I mean, I was going like nonstop all the time, even in college. And then I met my ex, and I don't want to say like I fell off the wagon, but I started getting migraines. And I'm not really sure what exactly like started them. I don't really know the process or why I really started to get them. I will say this, throughout my high school career and my college career, I did a lot of stupid stuff, like And I think like I've suffered whiplashes and concussions like multiple times. So I'm pretty sure I got some cervical disc issues going on back there. And I'm pretty sure, I don't want to know. I'm good. I don't need to know. All I know is I got a pretty good guesstimation that they're going on back there. But long story short, after the birth of my first son, they started getting more consistent and like every single month. Like, and they would lay me out for like a day.
Mm.
Like these suckers, like if anybody's ever experienced a migraine, I mean, it just like I don't know how to explain it. It's just like somebody's taking a knife and just jabbing it into your head, and you almost sometimes would feel better, almost like could you just jab a knife into my head and try to get it to go away. You know, the sound, the light, it get to me to the point to where the pain was so intense I'd throw up. And then the next day I would be okay, but I was really slow. You know what I mean? It's like the second day, or, you know, when you're kind of recovering over a cold, you know, you just don't feel good. That was 2 days. And I got a little baby and, you know, almost toddler, you know, and that's just so at the time I was doing massages when I could. I was doing uh, chiropractor. I was getting Novocaine injections because that was before Botox. That's how old I am, right? So I would get, and then I was on like muscle relaxers. And my doctor, I don't know what it was, but one day I was in there and I looked down, you know, at this handful of pills and I was just like, how long am I going to have to take these? And
Right.
she's like, probably the rest of your life. And I was like, no. I'm like still fairly young. I'm 27. I'm like, to me, this just seems ridiculous, right? Like, I just was like, mm-mm. So she said, well, I don't know, try yoga. I'm like, yoga? So I am originally from Wisconsin. So, and I grew up in like a cult. So, and of course, pre internet, right? My idea of yoga was like hippies or really skinny rich people did it, right? Like I wasn't exposed to this. So I was like, okay, I'll go try yoga, right? And I went to the local gym and I started doing it. And the beginning, I was my migraines did not subside. However, like about maybe 8 months later, I felt good though after doing them. But honestly, in the beginning, sometimes they actually triggered a migraine. So
Mm.
I was experiencing basically what I've learned now, which is keeping so many people held back from actually moving forward in their fitness journey is kinesiophobia, which is the fear of injury and or re-injury. And because I was always worried about triggering a migraine, but I kept at it. And the main reason why was because in about 2, 3 months, I didn't lose any weight, but I sure was losing inches. So I was kind of like sold. Like I
Not
can
from yoga, just from yoga. Yeah.
Yep. And so, but that was the catalyst because around 8 months later, I realized, you know, it's actually been longer duration of time since I had the last migraine. And so it was just something that I observed. But then I was ending up getting more physically active. So again, then that was just when I got to be able to get back to running and the elliptical machine and all this other stuff, and then weightlifting. And I just, and long story short, I got back to the States. I saw a neurologist, got put
Mhm.
on other medication for it. And again, I was like, this is ridiculous. But 2 years later, I was off all my meds. So I know, like, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I promise I am a proactive, like, medication is amazing and there's a time and a place for it. However, me personally, if I don't have to take it, I'd rather try to find an alternative, right? Like an epidural, thank God for epidurals, right? When you're those little babies. But so that's kind of how I ended up um here. Never in a million years did I think I'd end up doing yoga for a career. Never even crossed my mind, right? But with being a spouse of the like we moved a lot, so
Mhm.
we were over in Atlanta for 4 years. But then like we came back to the States because he cross trained. We pinged around 3 different bases in almost 2 years, and then got over to Korea for 2, and then shot over to Germany for almost 5. So but that's the one thing, every single base I had a skill set. So within 2 weeks of getting to that base, I was teaching yoga. And that was actually kind of too, when I was doing the yoga classes, there was a teacher training that was coming through and my instructor was like, you know, you're really good at this. Like PCSing, you want to get this certification and then you can take over the class when I left. I was like, to get paid to do what I'm doing now for free? Yeah, I'm in. So kind of how it happened. So, and then
I was going to say with that point, it's also when you jump military base to military base, and if you have some type of chronic illness, you literally have to start all over again with a new doctor explaining what's wrong with you. And to your point, 9 times out of 10, new medication. So, you know, I'm sure you were a godsend to a lot of the spouses and stuff there because it was something different that they could do. And, you know, it wasn't, like you said, medication.
Yeah. And that was it. This is kind of the crazy thing. Like, I think because of my personal injuries, I knew too about just the military spouse and this stress and I mean, and just the military lifestyle in general. You know what I mean? When we got to Germany, I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I should get a real job, right? So I was like, okay, I'll go in. And I started looking around at USA Jobs. And I kid you not, this job came up. And so it was kinesiotherapy assistant, comma, yoga instructor. And I was looking at the PD, the job description. I was like, this job was like written specifically for me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so what I had been doing over all of the prior years, because this was so not uncommon, they come to me for personal training and they go, okay, I just came off a shoulder and a back profile and I have 60 days to pass my PT test. And then I would get them with weight resistance training. I'd get them doing yoga and then spin classes. And they're like, why don't you have me running? Like, because right now we're going to get the rest of your tissues stronger and healthier because running is an extremely jarring impact. And so, you know, biomechanically, and this is just my own personal opinion, I got a lot of them, right? Because some people say marathon runners, you know, ultra marathoners, there's nothing
you
wrong
running,
with that.
by the way, don't try it. I see you running this.
Yeah, but I do them for fun. And I also have to be completely honest. We turn them into girls trips because the guys will stay home because they're like, I'm not flipping running. You're mine. And we're like, but we've like been hashing them or we're kind of hungover when we go run them. But with that being said, I don't train like a lot of other people do for the halves. I've done one full, it sucks ass. I marked it off my bucket list. I don't need to do anymore. The half marathons, they're a lot of fun. But everybody's like, well, how do you train for this? I'm like, I don't run. And people look at me like, you're crazy. I'm like, no.
Body just already got you. So that makes
I switch up my weight training. So I go for muscular endurance, which is lower weight, higher reps. I do spinning classes or I do spin and then my cardiovascular and then yoga. Yoga almost no matter what I'm training for, I'm always doing yoga. But yeah, so that was, and then I ended up getting the job at Launchstoel, and all of these years of working with the military with their existing issues basically prepared me for what I was going to be seeing at Launchstoel. And so it was a pilot program, and we were tasked with using holistic modalities, CAM modalities, complementary alternative medicine, which would be acupuncture, chiro, and now yoga is starting to be introduced. Not every yoga is created equal, but I'll go into that later if you want me to. But yeah, and we worked with an interdisciplinary program. So we had the acupuncturist, a PT, OT, pain trained psychiatrist, pain trained doc. So we actually fell underneath pain slash anesthesia. And we were a pilot program that was congressionally mandated by and funded, and there were 5 pilot programs. Supposedly whoever had the best outcomes, the idea was to cookie cutter it and then implement it within other military facilities and other medical hospitals, even the VA. And so I'm seeing certain programs pop up like here and there that I think are loosely based off of what we were doing. I don't know if they've got free reign and are just kind of reinventing the wheel again. But we had such amazing outcomes. Our outcomes and our preliminary data was so good. They thought we were padding our numbers.
Yeah,
I mean, we had like.
When you told me that, sorry to interrupt you, but when you first told me that when we talked a couple weeks ago, I was really interested in to know that, what year was that? Like.
So I came here in 2016, because we were forced to, 5-year rule, living overseas as a civilian. so the data was collected. We started actually working
Mhm.
with special ops. So I was working with also too, it was called the Evolutions
Okay.
program, which is an intensive PTSD program. That was like an 8 week long outpatient, but intensive. And then we ended up getting thrown onesie twosies from the special operation communities. And so we've got multiple different um, uh, types because of all the different bases that are stationed over there. So we had like Deltas, Green Berets,
Mhm.
Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, you name it, we had them coming through. And a couple onesie twosies were coming through. They were actually going through the TBI clinic, the traumatic brain injury clinic. And their program is typically a 12-week program. And they sit them in all of these really cool contraptions and like these boxes and the floor shakes. And what it does is it like messes with their vestibular and then makes them throw up
Mhm.
type of thing. But it's actually one of these things to where with TBIs, it's almost like you got to make it worse before you get better. And it's the same thing with a lot of people in their chronic pain as well. The problem, so like chronic lower back issues, shoulder issues, the problem, what I have found is really why people do not understand the difference though between pain and discomfort,
Mhm.
because the brain actually learns pain. So what we have to do is after the initial injury is technically healed, depending on the injury, right, it's going to pretty much be healed up in anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, again depending on the injury, right? So that's just kind of like a general rule. But once that initial injury has healed, many times you should no longer be experiencing pain in the concept that we have created it in the mind, because pain is there to actually protect us. It's there to protect us from going too much further and causing more damage. The problem gets into play is neuroplasticity, so neural pathways. It's basically a behavior or a thought that these neurons travel multiple times to do a function or create a thought or
Mhm.
behavior. So in the process of healing, we end up not doing things, like we're just mentally more cautious of it. We don't plan, we don't maybe go as far into the stretch of the movement, or we've been sitting for 2 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Or we've been um, slowly but surely not actually putting too much load on it, right? So we're unconsciously doing these things to protect us from injuring ourselves worse. Totally good. Totally, right? We need to do
Mhm.
that. But the problem comes into play though, is when you start to end up having that loop continued more and more frequently, and you're no longer catching yourself, and then you actually start doing the complete opposite, which is not moving at all, which is
Right.
even more problematic for you. It's like drastic, like that's what's going to end up leading to a lot more complications and problems that you're going
So
to end up having. Does that?
let me grab all of that because that was a lot.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's
Okay.
great. So I want to kind of, for our listeners who are just coming on, so Sam was with a program for the military, just kind of to wrap it on a nice little bow, to pretty much bring yoga and those things to help with PTSD and just all of that. And the program was a huge success. And like other military programs that are huge successes, they decided to say, we have a new commander, so let's go another direction. But the data is still there. It was a successful program, which most of us now in this day, back in our day, were like yoga, whatever. I was the same way like you were. But now it's like, yes, yoga, it works. It's the thing. And also for those of you who are just coming over, kind of going up and down with people, I'm giving away Sam's book. So like our live, give us some questions for Sam as she's talking. She has a wealth of knowledge. I mean, the whole word I can never say, the kinesi, what is it?
Kinesiotherapy.
Or just the phobia. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
kinesiology. No, kinesiophobia. What am I talking about? Kinesiophobia.
Phobia. Like that, when you told me about that, that is such a real thing. I've had people come on and just message me and say, I don't have time to do yoga. It takes so long and I don't have this and it's like, no, no, no. So and I think that's one topic I'd like you to kind of touch base on, because a lot of people have that. And You know, how do you work with, like, to get them out of that mindset?
Yeah. So again, you're absolutely right. A lot of times people will think, I don't have time for yoga. Well, are you doing stretches? That's the first question I ask them. And they're like, well, yeah, you're already doing yoga. You're just sectioning it out. Yoga's been around for 4,000 plus years, long before the word stretches existed. Same thing with physical therapy. If you've been doing physical therapy, you've been doing yoga. Again, yoga's been around for 4,000 plus years. Physical therapists have only been around since like 1936 or so. It's kind of like when they started emerging. So don't get me wrong, physical therapists are extremely beneficial because we have to get the tissue after an injury and the biomechanics working in a way that's you're going to need in order to progress and keep moving forward and still stay physically active, right? So with that being said, many times physical therapists keep you in a one-dimensional world, and then as soon as they're done, they're like, okay, either your insurance is run out or technically you're good to go, right, by their standards.
Right.
And then they say, okay, well, go do yoga or go to the gym or whatever. And then the next thing you know, if you do not have the funding or the funds to be able to pay for a good yoga instructor, a good yoga therapist, or a good personal trainer, you're watching Sue or Joe in the corner, and then the next thing you know, they don't have proper form, and now you're basically re-injuring yourself right back to square one, if not worse. So there's this problem within the medical system, and a lot of providers know this. What I've also learned too is a lot of times insurance and basically insurance companies are not keeping up with the latest research. As messed up as you would think that would be, like, oh no, here's a new pain med, or here's a new like spinal stimulator apparatus we can implant into your body. They're pretty up to date on that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like CAM modalities and actually just getting back to basics, no, they're way far behind. So I'm sorry, chronic, but yoga, and was it with,
Just
can't remember what you were saying to segue into that, but
just trying
um,
to get people not worried about, you know, doing it, and worried that, and to that point, even to that point, to add to it, I know you and I talked about people, and I have a lot of friends and a lot of people who follow me who have chronic illness. And you talked to me about yoga for one person is not the same as it is for another person. And you just have to find the right match
yes,
for you.
Yeah. And that's the thing for individuals who typically have chronic pain, right? If you walk into your boutique yoga studios, depending on the studio, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard of Bikram yoga. I met the dude, makes my screen crawl.
You actually met him?
I did.
I watched his whole thing, so that's funny you met him.
I did. I actually met him at a conference that he was having in Paris because I was doing recon. And so they're like, hey, what kind of yoga do you think we should be implementing here? And da-da-da-da-da. So I was like, okay, I'll go check out this Bikram thing. Why is it so like, cool? And oh my gosh, I did a couple of classes, and all I could think of is like for the patient population that we had, not to mention for a lot of the general public, the stuff that they're doing, lock the knees, lock the knees. You don't ever lock out a joint when you're doing some type of physical activity because it biomechanically locks you into place and therefore overloads like facet joints and things in this, you know what I mean? Tissue, cartilage, it's no bueno. But what do I know? He's healed all of these people. And I'm not saying that it's not good, right? Again, for those people, I'm like, hey, if you're doing Bikram and you're doing yoga, I'm glad you're doing it. But again, a lot of these boutique studios, there's a lot of good ones out there, and there's a lot of good teachers out there. A 200-hour teacher training certification is about 180 in-person contact hours. Now a lot more virtual with COVID, but, and then, you know, like 20 hours of self-study or things that people recommend, the school recommends that you do in volunteering and teaching yoga. That's it. And this is what I find absolutely crazy. I am a registered yoga teacher training school, and I am able to actually certify people in their 200-hour yoga teacher training certification. So when I was compiling my syllabus, because we have to submit a syllabus about like the only, and this is what blew my mind, they only required at that time, and this was only 3 years ago, only 20 hours of anatomy and physiology.
Mm.
To me, I'm like, you're freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Because this is the this is the great thing about yoga, right? It's so diverse, right? So some people really want to immerse themselves into traditional yoga, that comes from India with the Sanskrit. They want to learn how to actually speak the Sanskrit. They want to get more into philosophies, and that's totally great. I think that's fantastic. However, based off the American population, and if you're going to be teaching, and it's great if you're going to work for that specific and teach for that specific yoga community, but the 1 in 3 Americans has some type of chronic lower back pain. And it blows my mind how traditional cueing through so many yoga instructors actually exacerbate the underlying condition by just regular cueing and just one simple sun salutation. There are basically 3 cueings that they traditionally do in almost every single yoga class, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm not hearing the alternatives of, hey, if you have chronic lower back issue, do this. I actually
Right.
sent for a class, a yoga class for a lady. This was a while ago, and because when you sub for a class, it's one thing when I know the people and I have a little bit of rapport, right? I can go and go, Josie, no, Sphinx pose. Right? You know, you kind of whisper in there and goes, no, don't do up pose, right? Because I know about their back issues or whatever else they got going on. When you're subbing for class, you don't know, right? Well, this lady, she kept going in to, you know what up dog is? Okay. So basically, I don't know if all your viewers know, but it's where your legs are basically in contact, your hands, and the rest of your body is up off the mat, and you're gazing up. If you do not mula bandha, basically suck in the gut and activate those abs, what the chronic, like the lower back just sits there, and now not only do you have the weight of the body, right, but now you're just basically taking the lower lumbar spine and just crunching it, because now you've also got gravity adding to it. So it was funny because I kept cueing, like, hey, how about everybody just keep it in cobra tonight? No up dog. Right? Well, this one lady kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And the funny thing was, after the class, she came over and she's like, oh my gosh, I've never had you teach. I loved you. She goes, I have a question though. She goes, maybe you might have an answer for me. I've been having this chronic lower back pain. I'm like, really? And I told her, I said, well, did you hear me cueing tonight about people just keeping, the cobra on the cobra and not up dog? And she's like, yeah, like I was actually talking to you. She's like, what? And I she's like, what? But that's the thing, because so many times, right? That's one of the great things about a moving meditation, which was what yoga is, right? Same thing with running, even walking for some people. You end up being able to be in a position to allow the mind to rest and be calm, because your body is just moving, right? It's just going from one pose to another because you've done it so many times. That is great. However, my personal opinion, there's so many Americans that are mindlessly going through every single day of their life. And mindfulness is learning how to help the mind be aware of what not only are you physically feeling, but more importantly, the mental and the emotional experiences that you're having throughout the day, because all of those emotional and mental experiences can actually contribute to the physical problematic and the physical chronic pain. Because
I was just going to say real quick, which was great because last week we had Christy on who was talking about mindfulness and the present and all that. And then I had posted something that I watched and it kind of stuck with me, was for chronic pain. And he said it, and he said something, I'm going to mess it up, but basically it was like, don't let your body tell your mind what's wrong with you, because your mind controls your body. And at that moment, like this aha, big light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because as soon as I feel a pain, right to my mind, I'm like, oh, I broke my arm, or oh, it's my Lyme disease, or oh, it's my heart, I'm gonna have a heart attack. And instead of saying no, your mind is to tell your body, with being present, how to feel. And that was like, oh, blew my mind. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna think about that all the time now. It's so different.
Well, but also though too, so this is actually what I tell people. So it's kind of the same thing, but I phrase it differently. because there's some people, so I get it. I totally understand, and that's what it, but many of us don't pay attention to the body. We're we're deep, so those are neural pathways that are actually defaulting more to the pain, right? But if you actually listened and really were honest with yourself about how do I physically feel, and you're kind of like, well, actually, I'm okay, right? Gut instinct, women's intuition. How many times have we not listened to that gut instinct and we knew, right? Like, but the brain is like, no, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Or, well, I read something on Wikipedia, right? Or WebMD'd something. So now I'm smarter than what my body is. And reality is, we're not, right? But I agree with that we need to change that. Yes, when there's things that we have to be aware of, and and it's absolutely right. The brain is the hard drive. It's the hard drive to everything that we do, think, are, right? And but a lot of times, though, the stress, how we hold ourselves, all of that will contribute to the physical. And then I've seen too yoga be a fantastic tool to either one, and it can go both ways. This is what I think is really cool about it. So sometimes when people have a physical release, it'll lead to an emotional and mental release. Like I've had people literally just all of a sudden start crying. I'm like, oh crap, did I and I'm up in my head kind of going, oh my God, did I just cue something? And I just like had them break a bone or something? Like, what the hell? But then once I've done this more often, right? And then I understood and started really understanding the mind body connection. But also, though, too, we can have it can also be another way. When we actually have an emotional or mental breakthrough, physical pain will go away or start to become less. So it's really kind of crazy. So it goes both ways. At least that's what I've seen. But I totally get but I understand what this person was saying. So I totally get it. So
to your point, when I was doing my yoga, I do yogas on Wednesdays. Well, I with a group, and because obviously most of us Americans do not know the different stretches and poses and things like that. And I tell you, when you get a pose that is the right one for what you need at that moment, not only do you not want to leave the pose, it's just like, can someone take a picture of me? Because either I'm doing the pose and I'm so excited, like pigeon pose is my favorite pose, but or it's just, oh, I can feel some stretch I did today, all this relief in my neck. And I was like, where's that pose been all my life? And I would have never, I mean, the way she had one leg here and an arm there, and I could have never gotten myself in that pose by myself. So, I mean, that's to your point. Like, if you find something while you're doing a practice, as little as it may be, that relieves some kind of stress, mental, it's like it'll blow you away. But I know there's a lot of I'm definitely going to have you back on because there's a lot of topics individually that we can break apart and talk about. I want you to tell our viewers, which I think is so cool. So what are you doing now?
So right now I'm a health and fitness specialist for members of Congress and their significant others. So it's kind of like a little kept secret. The only people that are able to have access to this is like myself and my coworkers, right? But like even the staff don't know about it. The staff has their own gym, and yeah, so sitting members, past members, they can keep, and then we've got a couple senators that I guess have kept. They were congressional members previously that keep. So I have actually been introducing a lot of them while I'm here to the difference between yoga and then yoga therapy. So that's like a whole nother thing, right? So the yoga, right? The classes and such, it can be so extremely beneficial. And then you've got your 500-hour teacher trainings. So that's like 300 hours on top of the 200 hours. And then the yoga therapist, right? For 1,000+ hours of yoga. And we end up using yoga to help complement Western traditional medicine, right? So, but they've been coming to me when I started. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'm a certified yoga therapist. Well, what I did was I slowly but surely tricked them. And so I took him through a yoga class, right? But I'd always ask him, okay, so what's going on today? And I've got this one, he's so sweet. Comes in every day, Sam, gotta lower my damn blood pressure, right? Every single time. What's your issues today? My blood pressure. I'm like, dude, you're gonna have yourself a heart attack, right? But it's kind of interesting though, because or like one, he had a lot of lower back issues. He had some shoulder.
Mm.
So he said that it all started like because a lot of these, I mean, we're working with type A personalities, right? So go no, not really, really. But but we're sitting here and then they're, you know, a lot of them were collegiate athletes. I've even been working with one. He was actually on the US American volleyball team, men's volleyball team, long time ago. But anyway, so a lot of old injuries,
Mhm.
right? Well, they just can't like suppress it. They keep traveling. Obviously their schedules are crazy, and but slowly but surely they've started, they were like, oh my gosh, that session was just amazing. How did you know? I'm like, how did you know what to do? Well, first I asked you what was going on when you first came into the room. But they're finally starting to understand the difference and the benefit. So I think that when people end up trying out yoga and they're like, I hate yoga, I'm never freaking going back. It actually did me good, which I've heard I don't know how many times.
Right.
I really recommend people like, okay, well, let me just take you through some things. Let me give you some guidelines, like some very, very basics that you can take with you based off of what your issues are, and then try it again. And you're absolutely right. Like, there's depending on the person, their issues, what kind of yoga, the teacher. Sometimes people love the teacher, can't stand the yoga. Sometimes they'll love the
Right.
teacher and can't stand the yoga, right? So it is like, I mean, half of this that old saying, half of figuring out what does work is figuring out what doesn't work. Um, and this is one thing I tell people because sometimes too with the whole entire kinesiophobia, the fear of movement and or injury or re-injury, we all have it and we will all experience it on some level to some degree throughout our life, right? It's just
Mhm.
it's inevitable because you know that whole entire saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. You know, it's really true.
And growing
And
old is inevitable.
exactly, exactly. Well, girl, I'm doing everything in my power
Yep.
to like not look at or feel it. I'm doing my best to try to keep it at bay for as long as possible. Um, but I think th- here's a really kind of easy
Mhm.
trick to know because some times people are like, no, you don't understand, Sam. I'm in pain. And they'll even come to me and they'll say, my doctor, I'm so pissed, or my psychologist, I'm so pissed off. They all think this pain
Right.
is in my head. I'm telling you, it's in my knee. Okay, well,
Mhm.
kind of is in your head. And but when I'm able to kind of explain it to them, they're like, well, that makes sense. Why the hell didn't my doctor tell me that? Because your doctor's got 7 to 12 minutes, if they're lucky, to
Right.
actually address your situation in the room at that time. So if it's a sharp stabbing, shooting, or radiating pain, that is your body's way of saying you're going to create more damage if you keep doing this. So if you, and this is a kind of a, and they're like, well, yeah, but how do you know if it's a sharp stabbing, shooting, radiating pain? You're almost going to instinctively jerk, right? If you put your hand to a hot stove, I mean,
Right.
unless you really got some superpowers to move on, right? But the majority of us go, oh my gosh, that's hot. That's almost it. I typically can gauge when somebody's in
Mhm.
pain or just uncomfortable because it takes them longer than 3 seconds to actually say yes or no or where it is. Does that make any sense?
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of like my gauge. So I try to tell people that I actually train other yoga instructors, other fitness, and even medical providers on like these guidelines. And they're like, oh, you know, here's a way that you can acknowledge it. And then other than that, you know, I think it's just getting this concept of no pain, no gain out
Right.
of our minds. This whole entire fitness world of like balls to the wall 24/7. There is no pain, no gain needs to be switched to there is no gain in pushing through the pain
Mm.
because you're just there is no gain in pushing
Yeah.
through the pain.
Look,
And
there's Sam pushing through the pain right there. See her on the back back of that book.
uh,
I love that photo. It looks like you're just like flying.
you wanna know what's so crazy is I was just screwing around. I was waiting for my cousin to like figure out what to do next, and it turned out to
I
be
love.
like the best picture. So that's
Love it.
our, thank you.
So the
So,
book again, guys, for you coming on a little bit later, I've seen some more people pop in. Free book, like, comment, share. We'll be in the drawing for a free book. Sam's Yoga for Chronic Pain, WTF, best title ever. I definitely, like I said, want to have you back on. There's so much to talk about. One quick question before we wrap up. Do you recommend people doing yoga every day, or what's your recommendation for that?
yes. So I would always give my patients or even my clients homework every day. And and this is something you guys can easily do. Anybody can easily do. It's basically very simplistic sun salutations. And if you want, because it's the thing about stretches is they do help with the back, they do help with your shoulder, you know what I mean, or your headaches. However, the great thing about the yoga flows and why they're actually more beneficial for you is it because it incorporates the entire body. And it because it literally, we've got these fascia lines that go from the ball of our feet all the way up the backside of our body and actually end in our occipital lobe. Doing a down dog, believe it or not, can actually help to alleviate a headache. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. So we've got all of these fascia lines, and as our day goes on, our muscles, our fascia, our connective tissue, they get tight and they attach and surround the skeletal system. So when they get tight, they start to pull on the skeletal system, which can create other pain slash discomforts. So basic sun salutations. And I kind of have a little like a total body, like all kind of like the top 5 highlights, which are pigeon pose, thread the needle, believe it or not, child's pose, extended child's pose. If you want, I can send you a copy and you can kind of like put it up for people if you want. And then also, like with my website, you can always feel free to reach out to me that way. But yeah, so, also, I don't know if y'all would be interested in this or not, but I have been asked by another friend of mine. She's a personal trainer, but she's more of a bodybuilder, right? But she's shifted more into like really understanding the holistic,
Right.
She always has been, but anyways, newer in Germany. She actually helped me get ready to compete for my first bodybuilding competition. But she's asked me to participate in her 12-week challenge. And she's based out in Colorado, but it's open to whoever, and it doesn't cost anything. So there's this huge support group. I'm going to be doing weekly Facebook, conversations, weekly ones as part of it. I'm going to be a guest speaker. And I'm also kind of a sponsor, but I am giving away as one of the grand prizes a complete and total 200-hour yoga teacher training certification, like a value of almost $4,000. So
that's way better than my free book. What are you trying to upset?
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
But right now too, I am actually offering my teacher training, if paid in full, like $1,700. I'm cutting it in half. But the main reason why is because I can do it all virtually now. Like so for people who want to do it, and honestly, like I've even got some people who really want to do this, but because of their crazy schedule or whatever else is going on, now they're able to do it, but they're only able to do like 4 hours here or 4 hours there. It's easier, great. Yeah. It's absolutely great. Yeah. So that's going on. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So if you want, I can send the information
to
you.
Any information you want to share with everyone, as always, when I recap these, I'll put all your information in again. And just kind of to recap all of our conversations, move every day. If you're in the military and you have issues, don't think that medication is always going to be the answer. There is other opportunities for you. You can get in touch with Sam. She can put you through. I know you work at the VA and different things there. So that's always an option. So I have a lot of military people that follow me, and Sam's awesome. She has a website. She has like the book and all kinds of trainings and things. Definitely visit her. I'll have her back on again. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap us up and end with the spiel that I do every week, which is kind of cool because my word of the year is aware. So very good for being aware of your body and what it's telling you, and being aware that you need to move every day. And when I got hit with my anxiety attack that I had a while ago, first thing I started was yoga, because I'm like, okay, let's do it. And I started doing yoga every day, and I felt so much better. So it works. If you are a little scared of Sam because she is so amazing and awesome with yoga, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I can get you in touch with her. Next week on Live Well Wednesday, it is Thyroid Awareness Month, January. So I'm going to be taking charge and talking about my thyroid journey with Hashimoto's and autoimmune disease. And hopefully I can get some other people to come on with me, but I definitely want to have next week as an open conversation, talking to everybody, just letting everyone know that you're not alone and it's a struggle. So that's next Wednesday. Also, tomorrow, I've been invited to come on to Word of the Week with Joe and Roy that I talked about last week. So bright and early tomorrow at 8 a.m., I will be on their Facebook Live talking about the Word of the Week. Another thing to talk about is we're now a podcast. So I've got us, the Live Well Wednesday brand, on to Spotify. So I left some, I know, I'm excited. That's so cool to hear my voice, and it's like not my face, and it's just like, that's me and that's my people. So super cool. Definitely check that out on Spotify. And trying to think if there's anything else. Got a lot of people in right now. Free book, like, comment, share. I'm giving away, it's an actual book. It's not fake. It's there's really words in there.
I've been told it's not it's actually a decent book. It's not even a crap book. Who knew?
It's a fun book. I really enjoyed, definitely reading it. But Sam, thank you so much. I know this was difficult with your congressional friends over there acting fools, and
we do a lot of deep breathing.
Lots of zen with that. But thank you again so much for taking the time out and making this work for your schedule. And I will definitely have you back on. Everyone, reach out to me. Sam, have a great night, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.